Our first presenter is Tajmia from the Corporation for Supportive Housing, who will be leading that first training on the Continuum of Care deep dive. And I would also love if everybody who is in the audience would drop your name, your pronouns, your roles, and your agency so that we have a sense of who is in the meeting. All right. And with that, before maybe one more opportunity before we dive in is any other COC board members that would like to come off mute and introduce yourselves. I'm going to give folks the opportunity.
Okay, hi. I'm Ruby Tuesday Romero, and I sit on the COC board and advisory committee, and I'm also the co-chair for the system performance committee alongside Tamara Bowman.
Good morning, Martha Sassarosi, I use she, her pronouns, member of the Continuum Care Advisory Committee.
Hello, my name is Patricia Sam. I am also a board member for the Continuum Care Advisory Board.
And then I think I see Tamara's hand. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tamara. I'm a housing advocate and a Continuum Care board member and System Performance Committee co-chair. I use she, her pronouns, and happy to be here.
All right, and without further ado, we will get into the presentation. I do know that many of you are joining this meeting in your very busy schedules. I would just say that we would be absolutely grateful if any folks would be comfortable to turn on their cameras. I think part of us having a collaborative and participatory COC convening would be for folks who are in a position to share your screen so that we can do our best to connect virtually during the convening. I obviously recognize that some folks may not be in a position and be able to do so, but wanted to extend that olive branch for folks to turn on their cameras. Without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Tajmia, who will be leading our presentation, and we will be pulling up your slides for you momentarily. Mia.
Thank you, Alon. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here with you today. My name is Tashmia Bryant, but I just changed my last name. I got married, so that's why you're seeing Mia White. And so I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm with Corporation for Supportive Housing. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in the DC metro area, and I'm part of a technical assistance team, a federal technical assistance team that is working under cooperative agreement with HUD to provide technical assistance. And so we've been working for some years now, our team in Seattle-King County, providing technical assistance on continuum of care governance, on grants management, as well as coordinated entry. And we have a team of 4. So I'm one of 4. We also have Susan Sterrett, as well as Derek Wintor. And joining me today to participate in sharing this great information with you on COC, Continuum of Care information, is Sakina Hoyt. So I'll pass it over to Sakina, who's going to get us started and do introductions for herself also.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Sakina Hoyt. I'm happy to be here. I use she, her pronouns, and I am based out of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm also a part of the TA team with the Corporation for Supportive Housing. And I'm so excited to be able to talk to you all about COC roles and all of the entities associated with the King County Regional Housing Authority and your continuum of care. With that, I will turn it over to Mia.
Yes, and once we get the slides up, just wanted to share that we were asked to provide just an overview, kind of like a refresher of the continuum of care, understanding that many of you are brand new to continuum of care or are new to working with one another in this specific type of way as a membership. And so we wanted to ensure that we, support you on being able to get on the same page about what does it mean to be a continuum of care? What are the roles? How does the continuum of care board interact and function with the King County Regional Housing Authority or KCRHA, or sometimes you hear it as RHA? What does that even mean? And so, wanting to really understand what it means to be a member of a continuum of care and really talk through what we've been able to see across the country. And so we have worked in a number of different communities, and we have some advice, we have some suggestions, some recommendations, but the HUD regulations, the Housing and Urban Development, which is the federal entity that oversees, that part of it oversees continuum of care, they leave it kind of broad for communities to be able to tailor their continuums of care to their region, to their needs. And so we're going to be sharing some information that's very particular to Seattle-King County, but then also just talking in general about what continuums of care are able to do and the types of roles that you'll see within a continuum. And so we're going to start sharing our screens, or I think, King County is going to, KCRHA is going to be sharing their screens. All right. Everyone should be able to see it. Feel free to, if there's questions coming up in the chat, feel free. We'll try to get to them as often as we could and pay attention as we're presenting. Some of the things you have questions about we may be getting to in the presentation, so we may not answer right away. But want this to be kind of an engaging and learning experience as much as possible, again, as we're going to be presenting and talking too while trying to monitor the chat. So Sakina's going to get started, so I'll pass it over to you. Oh, you're unmuted, Sakina. And we can go to the next slide if Alex or someone is doing the slides. And one more, please. Thank you.
All right. I hope everyone can hear me now.
Yes.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm going to start talking briefly about the history of the continuum of care as it relates to HUD and also KCRHA and its evolution. Next slide, please. So the continuum of care process was established in 1994.
I think there's a little, sorry to interrupt you, Sakina. I think there's a little bit of a delay. Alex, if you don't mind going back to that timeline, I think Sakina just saw it a little late. My apologies, you guys, for the technical issues. You should be seeing kind of like a timeline. Sakina, are you able to see that on your end?
I see it. Thank you. Thanks for catching that. So the continuum of care process was really established in 1994 by HUD in order to coordinate distribution of funding for various homeless assistance programs. So the COC Notice of Funding Opportunity, just for some grounding, is the annual competitive process that's set forth by HUD. It's designed to promote a community-wide commitment to the goal of ending homelessness, because that's what we want to do here. Another goal of the NOFO process, the competitive process, is to provide funding for efforts to quickly rehouse individuals experiencing homelessness, persons fleeing domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, youth, and families as well. Homelessness is funded in this community many different ways, and the continuum of care funding is a significant funding source, which is awarded through the competitive NOFO process. In 2012, the HEART Act was initiated. The authorization of the COC process was signed into law by our former president, Barack Obama, which authorized, it gave congressional authorization of the entire COC process, which was really important. According to the governance charter, the National Innovation Center developed a report with actions and strategies to address homelessness. in King County in the city of Seattle. Both entities came together and made a commitment in December of 2018 to pursue those recommendations that were outlined in the report. And in September of 2019, former city of Seattle Mayor Durkin and Executive Constantine embarked on establishing the interlocal agreement. And Mia and I will refer to that as the ILA moving forward. And the interlocal agreement's purpose really just defined the scope, the role, and governance of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, which included the implementation board and the governing board. The purpose of the ILA established between King County and Seattle was really to coordinate resources. So they wanted to be more efficient and more effective around coordinating those resources to better address homelessness in King County and Seattle. So the ILA established KCRHA as an entity, and for further grounding, and probably a reminder for most of you, the mission of KCRHA is to significantly decrease the incidence of homelessness throughout King County using equity and social justice principles. We can move on to the next slide. So I'll be covering the roles of the various entities that I addressed in the previous slide. We can move on to the next slide. So within this continuum, we really have many partners, including the COC, the KCRHA, the King County Regional Housing Authority, the COC Board and Advisory Committee, which noted in the governance charter are one and the same entity. So that's important to highlight. KCRHA, the Implementation Board, and finally the Governing Board. Next slide. So the ILA really outlines these two critical entities and their roles, both the Implementation Board and the Governing Committee. So the Implementation Board is really purposed to make recommendations to the Governing Committee. The KCRHA strategic plans, the budgets, these are all recommendations that are made up to the Implementation Board. And the Implementation Board is also responsible for providing oversight and managing the implementation of operations and the legal affairs of the KCRHA. The Governing Committee's role is really to review, approve, and amend all of those plans and budgets that govern the authority. And additionally, responsible for approving the authority's organizational structure, amongst many other duties that are highlighted in the ILA, which we'll provide links to for you all. This entity is comprised of individuals with lived experience and expertise and elected officials serving in ex officio capacities. And we can move on to the next slide. Now I'll transition briefly to the meat and potatoes of the presentation. The continuum of care. So the responsibilities for the continuum of care are vast and critical. Some of the responsibilities include establishing priorities for funding in the process for the NOFO, ensuring that the appropriate organizations are represented in the full COC, which includes funders and projects served and serving homeless subpopulations, and that those organizations are really represented in the planning and decision-making. The COC must hold meetings of the full membership at minimum twice annually. There should be a strategic process around using data to inform the planning processes, decisions, setting appropriate system level and program level performance, and local and regional goals. The COC also should be building awareness, community awareness, and collaboration, inclusive of the needs of individuals that are experiencing homelessness. The COC should be responsible for designating a COC lead agency to act as the collaborative applicant. And in this instance, the collaborative applicant is the King County Regional Housing Authority. And this applicant is also the administrative entity. The COC should be designating a single homeless management information system lead, so the HMIS lead. And in this case, again, it's the KCRHA and the Coordinated Entry System Lead Agency. The COC is also responsible for the COC governance charter, which is hugely important. It's critical. It includes all the procedures and policies that are really needed to comply with the rules associated in the regulations. And it must be updated annually and brought to vote before the full COC annually. All of this should be done in consultation with the collaborative applicant, so KCRHA, the HMIS, and the HMIS lead. So all of this strategic planning should be done in concert with the KCRHA and acting as a collaborative applicant in the HMIS lead for clarification. Lastly, the COC must make an invitation for new members to join publicly within the geographic designated area at least annually. So that's really important. Next slide. So here are some additional required duties of the COC. Some of the responsibilities of the COC converge with the responsibilities of KCRHA and the HMIS lead, which Tashmia will talk about more later on in the presentation. KCRHA has been designated the COC HMIS lead, as I referenced, and is therefore responsible for the day-to-day HMIS responsibilities. There should really be a cadence established for the HMIS lead to report out to the full COC during either once a year or however often you all decide you want to create that cadence. But it's a best practice and definitely should be implemented. KCRHA is responsible also for drafting and submitting the COC application, and the COC is responsible for final approval of the application before the final submission to HUD. And currently, this COC has a application work group that assists with the preparation of the application and establishes the priorities and values that are set forth throughout the application for the annual COC competition. So that's a really great entity and space for if you desire to share input and to really be a part of that collaborative process around the development of the NOFO application, you can get involved there. So I'm going to turn it over to Tashmia. Next slide.
Thank you so much. And apologies, I think we were still seeing like a delay or something like that. So the slide that we're on is the governing charter is the one I'll be starting to discuss. Before earlier, you heard Sakina just talking about the roles and the duties, starting with the implementation board, the governing committee, as well as KCRHA. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about, as well as the continuum of care. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about what's in your governing charter and how that really influences the role and the work of the continuum of care. There will be a breakout group later on that is specifically focusing on the governing charter. So I'll be providing a very high level overview. And again, speaking to some specifics that are within your continuum, as well as just general information about charters and about COCs that will be just helpful for you all to know as you start to conceptualize this work that's happening, or this body. So wanted to share a little bit about what's in your current charter. And so your governance charter, COCs will often include values in their charter to describe the types of things that they want to either prioritize or center in their work, and ensure that these things are consistent throughout their efforts to end homelessness. And so, for example, within your continuum, the Seattle-King County Continuum of Care, you highlight equity, inclusiveness, transparency, and cross-sector collaboration within your values. And so you'll see that reflected in the values within your charter, and I've pasted them on the slide so it's easy to access. Your COC also has a theory of change. So the ILA requires that KCRHA has a theory of change, and this theory of change is also reflected within your charter. And it also will reflect the values of your continuum that help to really guide your work. And so in this particular theory of change, you'll see that people with lived experience are centered in efforts, and that it aims to ensure there's an inclusive and equitable approach to ending homelessness within your region. I'll also post in the chat the link to the charter if folks want to follow along or are curious. So you'll see that in the chat, and we can go to the next slide. So these are some other sections of your charter that are included. Again, I'm going to just very quickly go over these things, but it's something that you can learn more about through viewing the charter, as well as going to the breakout session later on today. So one thing to be mindful of is COC membership, that it outlines who can be a member, it outlines the process, and it provides information on when folks can join. And some of you all may have joined earlier in the year at the previous convening, or could have joined recently in preparation for this convening. It also outlines decision-making authority. So as Sakina was speaking of earlier, the Continuum is charged by HUD to be responsible for HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System, which is that database. So over HMIS, over the competitive application, over coordinated entry, like so many other things. And so the charter really outlines who's actually responsible for that, what entity will take charge of those things. And it also may speak a little bit to how that entity interacts with the board, or interacts with the membership and provides update reports, etc. So how do we all take care of these responsibilities and work together to ensure that they're happening in a way that aligns with our values, aligns with our theory of change, and other things, other priorities and things that's happening within our continuum. It also outlines the Continuum of Care board. So what does membership look like? What are the responsibilities? Also, your particular COC board is unique in that it also serves as an advisory committee to the governing board and implementation committee. And so there's an additional set of roles and responsibilities as the advisory committee. And that's not to be confused with the Continuum of Care board, because those responsibilities still hold true. And so they're kind of doing two jobs at once in a sense. Your charter also includes COC work groups and committees. And so this is where a lot of the work really happens in terms of the work of the continuum and the work of the board. You'll see a lot of work, you'll see a number of committees focused on those primary areas that we listed before. So on system performance, looking at the data, on coordinated entry, there's a convening committee, et cetera. And you can learn more about that in the meeting later. but it really outlines like where does some of our work lie? What is that platform for us to be able to do this work together? Next slide. And then within that, there'll be a lot of meetings. So, the COC board has meetings that are specific to the COC board. So they'll have planning meetings to, discuss amongst the co-chairs of the board and with KCRHA staff. There are board retreats that happen sometimes, and oftentimes that's just allowing space for business of the board to be discussed. So how do we work together? What are our group agreements? Some of this learning, like being able to do training and understand certain things so that they feel equipped to do their roles, their jobs. But then there's also those public monthly and special board meetings. So there was one actually just this past Friday, a special meeting. And every month there are board meetings that are open to the public and that many of you, I'm sure, join to learn about what's happening within the board, the continuum, and within the committees also. You also see KCRHA staff present on the work that they're doing within their role and their designation to do certain duties of the activity, do certain duties of the continuum. And so you can get updates and information at those meetings. And then also, there may be advisory committee meetings. So meetings that are very specific to the board's role as the advisory committee to the governing board and implementation committee, where they're talking about issues that they want to raise to those boards and other things. In the middle, you'll see a list of the committees and work groups. So I mentioned before, system performance, coordinated entry committee. There's a COC application work group. So that's who works on that competitive application that Sakina spoke about earlier. There's a cross-cutting policy work group, as well as the newly formed convening committee to help plan today, to help plan these types of gatherings, and to hopefully make it very fruitful and informational and helpful to you all as a continuum and be able to build those relationships. And so that's a newly formed committee to help to build these convenings out in a thoughtful way. And there's some board members on there, KCRHA staff, and also members of the continuum. And so lastly, you have the COC membership meetings. So that's these minimum biannual, which your continuum could do more than twice a year, but at very, very minimum must do twice a year to be compliant. You also have COC sponsored training. So various trainings that are required as part of the competitive application that must be provided to grantees and also just to members of the continuum. So you'll see those meetings also sometimes pop up that involve a number of members of the continuum. Next slide. Thank you. So what does it mean for KCRHA, so the King County Regional Homeless Authority? So what does it mean for them to be the COC collaborative applicant and the HMIS lead? What it means is that as a collaborative applicant, they're responsible for applying for HUD funds every single year. They apply for these planning funds and they do it on behalf of the continuum. A lot of this work happens within the NOFO work group that I just talked about, the NOFO committee that I just talked about, but a lot of it also happens within KCRHA as they are certainly designated to perform that role. They submit the COC consolidated application as part of the NOFO competition, and again, they're doing this on behalf of the continuum of care. As the HMIS lead, so again, HMIS stands for Homeless Management Information System. Every COC must have an HMIS system, and they'll use different vendors called, specific names of whoever that vendor is as their HMIS, but they must have some type of system, a database that's compatible that they're using to be able to track and monitor and understand what's happening within their continuum. And so as the HMIS lead, they are the single designee. KCRHA is a single designee for the entire COC geographic region. And they were designated this by the COC to act on its behalf. They have to be a legal entity, which they are, an eligible applicant, which they are, and they must participate in the systems performance committee. So that's what you all see as listed in one of your committees that's within your charter. Next slide. All right. Also, so in addition to being the HMIS administrator, as well as the lead applicant for the competitive application, it's also a governmental agency, administrative agency. So you'll hear KCRHA kind of referred to in like so many different ways, KCRHA, the RHA, a governmental administrative agency. The ILA calls it a regional government agency. But then if you're talking to TA folks, or you're talking to, you're hearing HUD folks talk about KCRHA, they may call them the lead applicant, the collaborative applicant, HMIS administrator, which I talked about before, or you'll hear them talk about as the grant recipient. So they're the folks who receive money directly from HUD and then often will sub-grant out to other organizations for their work. And so you'll hear them being called the grant recipient. Their roles include providing leadership and guidance on regional homelessness issues, again, very much in collaboration with the board and other partners within your area, other key folks who are invested in this work and engaged in this work and hold a significant role in this work. They also include the role to sub-grant sub-recipients. So they have the role of performing contract management for federal and local homelessness funds. And then I mentioned this other part already, just the collaborative applicant, HMIS lead. They oversee coordinated entry. So you'll see the SCE overseeing coordinated entry. How do people access funds? How are funds distributed? What does that look like? How is it equitable? How is it accessible, et cetera? They perform monitoring and evaluation, just understanding how our program's performing. What are the benchmarks? What do we want to see? Are there any disparities? Are we seeing, folks languishing in homelessness? Are we seeing, just really understanding what we're seeing and identifying the gaps and the needs and being able to communicate that and work with you all to identify solutions. They administer the point in time count. They do coordination for that in collaboration with you all. And so on one of the recent board meetings, you heard an update about the point in time count, what's happening with that and how you can get involved and what the, the formulas that's going to be used, et cetera. And then they also help to coordinate the membership. So helping to be able to bring us together and keep us, I say us, but I'm also a guest, I'm TA. So when I say us, I mean you all bringing the continuum together to be able to do this work together. Next slide. All right, so the COC Board and Advisory Committee is a group of representatives, like at its basic definition, is a group of representatives acting on behalf of the continuum. So they also act on behalf of the continuum. And their roles are often around, like in the simplest high-level way to describe it, helping to align strategy, approving policies. And so one of the, approving policies. So they have a significant role within the committee work that happens and being part of those efforts. And there's some, approvals that go through there as well. Tracking of the homeless system progress, and also being part of the values and priorities. So being able to inform and help guide direction for that competitive application that we talked about earlier. And then also, as I mentioned before, the COC board is doing two roles. So it also serves as the advisory committee, and the ILA defines that as that it's a committee recognized by the implementation board, serving as the Continuum of Care board created by the Continuum of Care. And there's the particular federal regulation that you can reference to get more information about it. And it is, I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of pop-ups right now. You guys are busy in the chat. And it also serves as in an advisory capacity to the implementation board that is set forth within the ILA. And so notice that there are two different regulations being referenced that give a responsibility to the COC board and the advisory committee. So the ILA, but then also that federal regulation that you see, 24 CFR Part 578. And you can Google those things too. Federal regulations, 24 CFR Part 578 and be able to pull that up very quickly and find it. If you have Google or Bing or whatever search engine you like to use. Siri might even be able to tell you too, if you want to learn more about this. Next slide, please. And actually, this is our last slide. So I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like for these entities to work together. And so it sounds like, okay, well, the board is acting on behalf of Continuum and KCRHA is acting on behalf of Continuum, and we're the COC and we have a voice. And so what does that mean? And so the COC designates, so within the charter, the COC as a continuum, you all last convening, you all voted on your charter. Within that charter, it designated KCRHA as a lead agency and applicant for the continuum of care for COC dollars. KCRHA then carries out the daily administrative and operational functions of the COC. So we talked about the HMIS administrator, we talked about coordinated entry, about NOFO, about the point of time count. So on a daily basis, KCRHA is doing all those things, whether you're part of those conversations or not. Like that wheel keeps rolling, and then there's updates and ways that they're collaborating outside of that to be able to collaborate with you all within the committee work that's happening, and then other spaces and other pieces. And it works as a lead agency, so in collaboration with the COC and board. So the power and authority is given within the charter and the MOUs, the annual NOFO approval, other written agreements and laws that we've already talked about, in the regulations that we already talked about, and it really influences decision making. And so one thing that I wanted to highlight is that one way that the Continuum have been able to get involved is through the committee work that's happening. And so I know there are, Alex mentioned earlier being the chair of one of those committees, and all the collaborative work that happens there are oftentimes being updated and reported on in those board meetings. And so you can find more information if you are attending the COC board meetings where you're getting those updates. KCRHA has a lot of information on their website, and also you can learn about these things and identify where are your strengths and where are some other pieces that you would like to see happening within your continuum, and being able to voice that and share that. And perhaps that could be something that is included in as a committee, or included in your values. If you see something missing, the continuum is really a reflection of all the work that's happening to end homelessness, but particularly focusing on how those COC dollars from HUD are being utilized, and how effective they are in ending homelessness within your region. And so I'm going to stop there. I think we can take the slides down. And I'm going to just check if there's anything I need to clarify or go over. We also have Sakina still on, who might be able to answer some questions. So just a moment while I look and see what you all have been talking about. And if there's anything relevant to the information we covered, that maybe we can talk a little bit more about. Yes, the slides will be made available. So I'll say that out loud, because I see there's some questions about that. Okay, I'm not seeing, it seems like some of the questions were being answered already. I see someone also, asked about the severe weather protocol. So again, I was giving a very, very brief overview. And so there's so much actually that is being done as the administrator and the lead agency within KCRHA. And so the severe weather protocol is one of the pieces. And I also believe that there was an update given on a recent board meeting about that. Okay, I think we can stop there. I'm going to maybe pass it back over to Alan. Thank you again for allowing us to be able to share with you all and being able to stick around and help you out and support the great work that you all are already doing to end homelessness within Seattle-King County.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm gonna unmute my
When you just did.
thank you all.
Unmuting you.
Sorry, we're on a few computers here. So I also wanted to pause to see if anybody had any additional questions. If folks want to come off mute and share any questions related to Mia and Sakina's presentation, we absolutely welcome that. So I just want to take a quick beat to give folks a second to come off of mute.
Can I just
Mike
say
D.
that- Go ahead, Mike D.
Thank you. I was wondering if the COC is responsible for the geographic representations of how the King County Regional Homelessness Authority is overseeing the implementation of their 5-year plan. Like, for example, if I'm in Lake City, who's my person? Do they have meetings? If I'm in North King County, who's my person? Do they have meetings? I'm not seeing these meetings happening. Is that something the COC deals with? Thank you.
Thank you so much for this question. It is very timely. Internally at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, our team is working closely on ensuring that our KCRHA staff are very clear about which teams within the organization are responsible for working in lockstep with people with lived experience, as well as our nonprofit partners, government agencies, constituents, elected officials, et cetera, in accomplishing the myriad of goals outlined in our 5-year plan. What's on the horizon is that we will be engaging more deeply through our incredible sub-regional planning team, as well as KCRHA staff with the various localities that fall into the sub-regions. So there will be conversations and discussions kicking off on the horizon, and it will definitely be made very clear to you, Mike D, who, and we will make sure that you know exactly where and which spaces are appropriate for you given your presence in Lake City. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, which is exciting because that means folks will get a little bit of a longer lunch break. So we'll keep up the pace for now. And so what's going to happen next is we are going to provide an opportunity for breakout groups that will appear on the screen. And what you will have the option to do is to select either to participate in a training that's focused on the Continuum of Care Charter, or you'll have the opportunity to select to participate in a training on the criminalization of homelessness. So it'll be a tough choice for those of you interested in sort of COC board governance, changing and making adjustments to the charter in the future, or participating in a very live, discussion that's happening in King County and across the United States about responses to homelessness that, are really what are those alternatives to the criminalization of homelessness? So just want to give you a heads up that those breakout groups will be appearing on the screen for you to self-select which breakout group you would like to participate in. And thank you for your patience while those breakout groups get staged.
Alon, in the meantime, I just noticed there was a question about amendments to the charter. I had been scrolling up to see if I mentioned, so I just wanted to mention that is something that that is usually done within a convening. And so at your last convening that you all had earlier this year, you all voted on board members. And so that's a place where that happens with, that's a common agenda item that can happen within a convening, being able to vote on your board members as well as amending the charter. And so I believe I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe there'll be more information about that soon or upcoming, just with additional convening. So when there is an opportunity to amend the charter, I believe that information will be made available at that time. And I hope that answered your question. That looked like it came from Holly Willis. So safe to say there'll be more information coming.
Thank you, Hallie. Thank you, Mia. All right, and my colleague is working on setting up the breakout groups for us to self-select which training folks want to participate in. Thank you for your patience.
Those should be live and going. The breakout room should be open and folks can select which one to enter.
All right, so what you can do, everybody, is click the 3 dots above more and click join breakout group. And then from there, you can select, you can make your decision about which training to participate in. And we will see you all there, and we'll probably get started with those trainings in about 3 to 5 minutes to make sure everybody is able to trickle in there. And we will see you all there.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We're just about to get started. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this very important topic of criminalization of homelessness and the victimization of people currently experiencing homelessness. I think that we need to go in a different room. We do. Yes. Is it echoing? There we go.
Hi all, Kelsey Beckmeyer, she, her pronouns. We are coming to our lunch break. So as folks kind of come back from their breakout sessions, you are welcome to sign off. We will restart again at 1 p.m. and there we'll hold kind of a larger debrief of the 2 training sessions. So if you were not able to attend one, you can at least get a little bit of information on what was happening in the space that you were not in. We really appreciate you all being here. Again, we're going to be taking a lunch break from 12 to 1. So we will be reconvening at 1 o'clock and starting with a bit of a Q&A of what were some of your takeaways from the training session that you were in. So we thank you all for being here and joining us. And we will see you at 1 p.m.